Neopian lore, what we got in store. Talking about the things that we love and adore. We're all over 20, right? We stay indoors and play this game. And love this game. Sometimes hate this game. But let's all talk about Neopian lore. Yeah! Woohoo!
Welcome to episode 28 of Neopian Lore on the terrifying Snowager. I am going to geek out on some entomology this episode as the topic is a giant worm, so get ready. I'll try to be as accurate as possible and attempt to pronounce all names correctly, but keep in mind, this world is fictional and this is all just for fun. I'm your host, Krista Poyman. Now let's cozy up to some nostalgia. A gust of cold wind assaults you as you enter this vast ice cavern. In the center, you see a massive pile of treasure. Thousands, possibly millions of rare Neopian items, the biggest hoard you have ever seen. On top of the pile of treasure, you see a massive worm made out of ice. This must be none other than the Snowager. You have heard legends about this beast, and its greed, and how it likes to eat Neopets for every meal. And sometimes between meals too. The Snowager's lair is nestled in a corner of the ice caves on Terror Mountain, and looking at the description for the ice caves, it's no wonder this worm seems so temperamental. Deep within a glacier of northern Neopia, the ice caves have lain undisturbed for thousands of years. Recently, however, it's been opened up to the public and is becoming more and more of a tourist attraction by the day. If the Snowager had been living peacefully undisturbed for thousands of years, and then suddenly strangers infiltrate its home, trying to steal its treasure, it makes perfect sense that it wants to blast you. Granted, now that there are Neopians living in the ice caves, that grants more access to shiny objects to build its hoard. My favorite quote at the Snowager's cave is, "Important, some people have been creating multiple accounts to get more than one item at a time from the Snowager. Please do not do this. It makes the game unfair for others. We will freeze the accounts of people that we find doing it." Ah, the beautiful icy irony. The Snowager is asleep between 6 to 7 a.m., 2 to 3 p.m., and 10 to 11 p.m. Neopian Standard Time. During these times, you can attempt to steal a piece of treasure. There is an assortment of prizes to be won, such as plushies, keychains, and scratch cards, but the most coveted are the nags, specifically the platinum, mutant, jeweled, and sloth nags, as they are worth the most. Occasionally, your pet will get spooked. Quote, "The Snowager moves slightly in its sleep. You decide to run just in case it wakes up." But you could also be covered in an icy blast. Whoa! The Snowager rears up and fires a massive icy blast at you and your Neopets. Oh no! In that case, you are eligible to get the Snowager Roar avatar, randomly awarded after being blasted. You can also receive the Snowager as a Battle Dome challenger. During the winter starlight celebration, December 1st through January 3rd, the Snowager hibernates. Unfortunately, you cannot get the avatar during this time as it's unable to wake up to blast you, but have a go at getting some of that hoard. While during the rest of the year you can technically steal 3 times a day during the allotted time slots, you are limited to only 1 treasure per day during the winter starlight celebration. Perhaps if the Snowager awoke from their hibernation and saw their entire hoard gone, they'd go on a rampage, and no one wants that. And TNT also said, actually, a lot of his stuff is frozen into one nearly solid mass. To take all of it would require quite a few ice picks and a lot more noise than most Neopians are willing to risk, even around a hibernating Snowager. So during the rest of the year, outside of its hibernation, how would one get a leg up on the Snowager? Someone asked this in the editorial. If I can't see my invisible Neopet, then how can the Snowager see her? In which TNT responded, you remember those giant worm things in the movie Tremors, which could feel ground vibrations? Yeah, totally like that. which also seems similar to the giant sandworms in Dune. And just like these fictional worms, real-life ones, including the glacier ice worms, who complete their entire life cycle on glaciers, function the same way. Glacier ice worms' bluish-black bodies can sense the vibrations of animals moving nearby, and while they technically don't have eyes, they do have light receptors so they can sense whether they are in the dark or in the light. These critters are relatives to the earthworms, but instead of living in dirt, they wriggle through the snow where they munch on algae and bacteria. It is fascinating to watch videos of these little guys. They're only a few inches long, so they would have a long way to evolve to reach Snowager proportions, though the myth of large ice worms was prevalent in the 18 and 1900s. One newspaper article in the 1890s said ice worms are harmless and can be tamed and taught many tricks, and thus they afford endless amusement for the children. Others during this time jokingly blamed the ice disappearing on ice worms, quote, "But blimey, they say, that no matter how thick the ice is in the fall, the bloody worms eat it all before spring. Their bellies were bilious blue, their eyes a bulbous red, their backs were gray, and gross were they, and hideous of head." Most thought of these giant ice worms as a joke, but as with any fable, rumors spread, causing some to take it as fact. Back in Neopia, while invisible pets may not have an advantage, it seems plushy pets might, as they are lightweight because they're filled with stuffing. We see evidence of this in the Neopedia entry Simon and the Snowager, where a plushy Tuscanini enters the Snowager cave in order to finish his neg collection. The plushy Tuscanini shivered as a wave of cold passed through the empty ice caves. No doubt strong winds from Terror Mountain. Simon surveyed his lifeless surroundings. With the exception of some young Bruces building a snow fort in the distance, Simon was alone. Perfect circumstance for sneaking past the Snowager unnoticed. Peering around, Simon searched for the entrance to the Snowager's cave. Loud, wheezy snores echoed around the freezing area as the Tuscanini looked around. A giant icy mouth lay ahead, and as Simon slowly crept inside, he could hear the Snowager's every movement, as he was sure the Snowager could of him. Simon was astonished at the interior of the Snowager's cavern. There were hundreds upon hundreds of rare treasures that would make even the richest Neopians jealous. But nothing else mattered to Simon. That is, nothing else but the super neg that lay on a pile of items behind the Snowager that climbed its way to the ceiling. As the Tuscanini crawled up to the bottom of the neg's pile, he noticed a medium-sized rock near a yellow terry keyring. Thoughts raced through his mind as he picked up the rock. "I'm quite a good aim," he assured himself, closing one eye and pointing the rock at the super neg. "And I'm quite a good throw," he thought, flinging the heavy rock at the neg on top of the pile. "But I'm not a good catch," Simon remembered. He whirled around and began to run as the rock made contact with the glassy neg, sending it tumbling off the pile towards the hard, icy sleet. The Snowager's head shot up in a second as a loud crash echoed around the small cavern. It spun around, eyes darted around every which way, searching for the intruder. The Snowager rose off the pile of plushies and slithered around the cavern, investigating every item in its snowy lair. Pile after pile the Snowager slid over to, making sure everything was there. After several minutes, the Snowager was sure that nothing had been taken from its treasure-filled abode. Slithering back to its pile of plushies, the Snowager took one last look around the cavern before laying its head down on a rather comfortable plushy Tuscanini. Hopefully, Simon eventually got out. I did investigate the Snowager's cave and didn't see anything that resembled a plushy Tuscanini in the hoard, so fingers crossed. It is heavily implied that the Snowager is an evolved version of the pet Snowickle, similar to the Termaculus being an overgrown version of the Termac, the giant gelatinous cube deriving from the Blobikins, or the Croc Neopet from the Croc Pet. Even the Snowickle's description says, This demanding little beast loves to collect shiny things and cries when you take them away from it. Very similar traits to the Snowager. It does get a little sticky as the Snowager is referred to as a worm, not a snake or a legless lizard, and TNT even confirmed this in the editorial. Even though in one Neopedia entry they do call the Snowager a snake, just saying. The Pet Snowickle does look very reptilian, but it is Neopia, so perhaps looks are deceiving. Or maybe when they call the Snowager a worm, W-O-R-M, they're referring to the Germanic dragon spelled W-Y-R-M. That would also track, as dragons/worms are known for their bountiful hoards. As far as we know, there is only one Snowager, but if the Snowickle can become a Snowager, why wouldn't they do so? What if, hear me out, all of the Snowickles are offspring from the one Snowager, similar to a queen bee or queen ant in charge of a colony? There wouldn't need to be another Snowager, as with queen insects, because after they mate, they store the sperm for the rest of their lives, and unfortunately the males die soon after mating. Queen bees live 2 to 5 years, queen ants 15 years, and as we're working in Neopia with ancient worms, it's likely the lifespan of a Snowager is much longer. In most mentions of the Snowager, the pronouns used are it, its, but there are a few mentions of the Snowager being called he, him. But I still really like the queen insect theory, making the Snowager female. We have also yet to see the Snowager out of their cave. If their role is to reproduce, then the Snowickles would perform the other duties of the colony, like gathering food or defending their territory. And we all know Snowickles really like to collect objects. With Neopians stealing from the Snowager, the hoard needs to be replenished somehow. Part of the Snowickle's duties could be to go out and retrieve objects for the Snowager's nest. And we don't see them out and about, as they likely have an elaborate tunnel system, and the Snowickles blend into their surroundings as they are made of ice. The perfect camouflage! With the amount of nags in the hoard, they need to come from somewhere, and guess what? Right across the way is the Neggery, a perfect source. For bees and ants to become queen, they eat a calorie-rich diet starting as grubs, known as royal jelly. Even if insects are biologically the same at birth, if one is fed royal jelly and the other is not, their larval development is completely different. In Neopia, nags are crucial to train higher-level pets for the battledome, and would be a perfect food to grow a Snowickle into a queen. If the Snowager needed to eat a specific nag, my bet is the ultimate icy nag. It just seems very fitting. If you want your very own Snowickle, they are a rarity 99 and restock at the Wintry Pet shop in Snowy Valley. For a while, Snowickles were extremely expensive, its highest price inflated to 28 million Neopoints. Luckily, during the 2023 Advent calendar, they were released along with the Christmas pattern nag so it could start its very own little hoard. Users also received an ice hissy morphing potion, which can make your pet look like a miniature Snowager, but with arms. Be warned though, Snowickles are like little raccoons. So cute, yet so destructive. Make sure if you attach one to your pet, they are ready for the long-term commitment. The Snowager has its own game called The Wrath of the Snowager. Description: a low-down Chia thief has made off with a huge bundle of the Snowager's loot. It's now your mission as the Snowager to chase down the crook and get back as much of your hoard as possible. And hey, if you exact a little revenge by viciously knocking the robber flat on his face and repeatedly pummeling him with blasts of icy breath, well, that's not so bad, is it? The Wrath of the Snowager is very similar to Mirka Chase, the Snowager getting bigger and bigger as they gather items. The thief from the game is a blue Chia who looks a lot like Mika from the Igloo Garage Sale. As the Igloo Garage Sale only sells items rarity 89 and under, Mika doesn't seem to be doing that great of job stealing. Stealing from the Snowager is not all fun and games, as the protagonist Keblin from the Snowager's Neopedia article could attest. The Aisha's father had gone to the Snowager's cave to seek fortunes and was never heard of again. Keblin went to avenge his father and take the treasure for himself, but the Snowager had awoken. The mighty beast let out an earth-shattering bellow, the likes of which Keblin could have never imagined. As the thundering roar reverberated throughout the cavern, icicles from the ceiling began to fall from the sky. One hit Keblin on the shoulder and he winced in pain. With that, Keblin ran for his life, never once stopping to look back. While it may be a fun adrenaline rush to steal an item from the beast, it's easy to forget it can be a deadly endeavor. In the Battle Dome, the Snowager is a formidable opponent, with difficulty levels at 650, 16,250, and 37,700, and is currently the strongest one-player opponent outside of the plots. It drops some really nice items, the most coveted being the Frozen Nag, which is 14 points at the Naggery. But the best item it drops, the most glorious, the most spectacular, is the itsy bitsy tiny snowball. When I look at this item, it releases so much dopamine. It's technically Battle Dome equipment, though kinda useless, but it's so cute. The seasonal attack pea and the itsy bitsy tiny snowball should be best friends. So tiny, so perfect. Interestingly, two of the Snowager's Battle Dome items are from an air fairy. The Cloud Rod, description, this magical artifact has been donated by the air fairy. Once it has been equipped by a pet, it can never be unequipped, or it will vanish into thin air. And the Wand of the Air Fairy, description, this powerful wand attacks with the force of a tornado or hurricane. It is hard to defend yourself against all of the wind. I do wonder if the Air Fairy who supplied these weapons could be the explanation for the Snowager's origin. Perhaps she carved a creature out of ice, whispered a few magical words, and blew a gust of air, giving it life. Maybe to protect the ice caves, the Snowager acting as its guardian. Ugh, now I demand an origin story. There are a few Battle Dome weapons you yourself can own which derives power from the Snowager, such as the Snowager Shield, which utilizes a scale. It must shed them, as plucking one off seems like a death sentence. There is also the Snowager Tooth Amulet, supposedly made from a lost tooth of the Snowager. The Snowager can talk, and does so in the Battle Dome. It will shout things at you like, "Feel my icy blast. Death or life, it isn't a hard decision. Maybe you should wait till I'm sleeping. That way you may have a chance." Maybe one day the Snowager and I can sit down for a nice cup of hot tea. Wait, no, that would melt it. Iced tea, and discuss that origin story. And finally, the Snowager does make an appearance in Neoquest II, but as the game centers around being trapped in a simulation, it technically isn't canon. In the story, when the protagonists travel to the simulation of Terror Mountain, the Snowager is imprisoned with magic. The protagonists release it in order to continue their quest, and the Snowager explains, "Thank you for freeing me. Now I will be able to restore order to this mountain. But there is much yet to be done. I am a Sentinel program, part of the ship's computer. My task is to keep the data lines clear and prevent rogue programs from taking control. However, a virus has inserted into the system by an unknown enemy and managed to defeat me, locking me into a data trap. Thankfully, you have freed me. The ship's computer, however, is now under control of the virus." I think this was a really clever way to utilize a character we know in the context of this cyber world. I love the analogy of the data trap being the Snowager's cave. Man, Neoquest II is such a fun game. Well, that's all for this episode of Neopian Lore. All characters and licensing belong to Neopets.com. Music was created by me, Krista. I hope you have an icy day in Neopia.